Max Dean is football, and I am Max Dean, aka the most tired dad on YouTube. This video is going to be all about the Pittsburgh Steelers salary cap. If you want to check out their draft tendencies video, you absolutely should. I talk a little bit more about the entirety of what I'm doing on this deep dive project for all the teams, and you'll also be able to get a standalone roster breakdown for 2022 as well. And those are going to be 3 separate videos on the channel, but if you want to listen to it in audio format on the podcast feed, it's all going to be just one big episode. So all of the contract numbers are from overthecap.com. I get pretty much all of my contract stuff from them all the time. They are awesome, so shout out to them. And follow me on Twitter at @TheMaxDean. So if you like what I'm doing here, if you have any questions, and if you want me to do your team, make sure to get at me either on Twitter or in the comments. And if you're a Steelers fan, post my video on Twitter, post it in any fan forums, because I can do more stuff like this if you help me get out there. And I'm trying to do as much as I can. I put a lot into putting all of this together. So it might not be the flashiest, but I think you're going to get a lot of information here that you don't get other places. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so we're going to make my face disappear here for just a second so we can see this cap breakdown real quick. Now, first and foremost, I want to point out something. This is not a cap hit chart. This is an annual salary per year chart. And to me, this is kind of the cap is super important, but there are other ways that I will kind of look at how they're using the cap. But in terms of their financial investment, this is a little bit more of an accurate way to look at it, I think, in some regards, and I'll explain more in a minute. But what this is, if you are watching on YouTube, which I kind of suggest you do for the cap part, because it can be hard to follow along with just so many numbers and dollar amounts, just totally over the audio portion. But TJ Watt is their most expensive player at just over $28 million per year. Cam Hayward is their second most expensive player at $16.4 million per year, and then Stephon Tuitt is their third at $12 million per year. So their top 3 most well-compensated players are all defensive linemen. Now, I mean, I know TJ Watt is an outside linebacker, but he's a 3-4 outside guy, which more or less makes him a trench player, in my opinion. Minkah Fitzpatrick is their 4th most highly compensated player. At this point, I'm going to use any players who are on their 5th-year option as their average per year, because to me, it just kind of makes more sense to look at that number almost like a baby franchise tag, if you will. So I'm just going to use that number, which is what he's playing on right now, 10.6 approximately million. So then Chukwuma Okorafor, right tackle, making $9.75 million in the first year of his new contract. They brought James Daniels over from the Bears to play guard for them. Interior was a little bit of an issue last year. Miles Jack at $8 million, who they signed after the Jaguars cut him. Then Mitchell Trubisky at 7.4 and change. So he is probably, in the old school sense, the leader for the number 1 spot, but I suspect that's pretty temporary. Mason Cole, center, at 5.25, another interior lineman that they brought over to help out that group a little bit. I think he's an improvement, but I don't think it's a substantial improvement, and so it's still an area of the roster that I would be a little bit concerned about. Then they've got Mason Rudolph at essentially $5 million, and then Devin Bush, for first round pick from 2019. He's still playing on his initial rookie deal, which brings him in around $4.7 million per year, more or less. Cameron Sutton, corner at 4.5. Chris Wormley, interior defensive line at 4.5. And as you go down the list, those are kind of all their highest paid players, and most of the rest of the list, you've got a few more veteran guys from various places: Akella Weatherspoon, Levi Wallace, but you're going to see a ton of drafted players make up the rest of this. And the good teams have this chunk, from approximately halfway down their salary cap, or their average per year breakdown, that are almost all their own draft picks. And the bad teams have a bunch of guys who might be UDFAs, guys who might be just Joe Schmo from some other roster who didn't make the team, guys that they picked up off of waivers. And not that any of those are bad individually, but if at least the majority of that second half of your roster isn't made up of your own draft picks, probably means that you're not drafting super well. And you can see here that the Steelers, for the most part, are. Most of these guys are guys that have been in that from those draft classes from 2019 through 2022. All right, let's move along. Okay, so now what we're looking at is average per year versus the actual cap itself. So when you look at all of those average per year numbers that I just had a minute ago, that totals $196,230,399 in average per year spending. Now, it's not a perfect representation of the cash they're spending this year. There are other factors that go into that, whether there are guarantees that teams have to put in escrow, or whether for whatever reason the salary in one year is a little bit more or a little bit less than the average. It's a pretty good approximation of their overall investment in their roster. I think it's probably the most accurate single number that you can come up with that isn't just like going way down that rabbit hole. And then you can compare that to their cap spending. So what have they actually, how much are they leveraged against the cap with those numbers? So their cap spending for these sort of projected 53-man roster is $179,691,055. So there is a variance there. It's to be expected. Some of it is built in just because of the way that rookie contracts work, but just a small amount. But overall, they are not heavily leveraged against the salary cap at all. Those numbers being less than $20 million apart are, that's I would say a conservative approach to spending versus the cap. And we've seen them do a little bit different before, but I think it's an indication that they view their roster as in a is competitive, but in that kind of transitionary period, and they will probably be more prepared to leverage themselves against the cap a little bit more in the next few years. I would imagine. That's just my kind of estimation. In terms of offensive, defensive, special teams, and dead cap, I like to compare these. So offensively, they are spending in APY $68,498,901. That's a pretty low amount for offense, and a huge part of that is just because of how many of their offensive players are still on their rookie contracts. Quarterback is still on the rookie contract. At least 2 starting linemen, I believe, are still on a rookie contract. Um, Pretty much all of their primary receivers are on rookie contracts, running backs on rookie contract, tight ends on rookie contracts. So, if you look at the majority of the primary contributors on offense, pretty much all but 3 offensive linemen are on those rookie deals. So it's not necessarily that they haven't made investments there, but financial investments not so much. Bunch of first and second round picks make up those groups. Defensive cap spending is 123,529,998. So obviously, way more spending on that side of the ball. Like I said, their top 3 most expensive players are defensive linemen, and then the fourth is safety. So special teams, $4,201,500. So pretty average special team spending there. And then dead money at this point is $25,293,424. I don't have the exact breakdown of that in front of me, but I do believe the majority of that it comes from the Ben Roethlisberger retirement. They used a bunch of void years to bring him back and kind of keep their cap together. So right now, they had one of the not great cap situations over the past couple of years, and with the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger, they took a little bit of a lump there. But right now, they're not heavily leveraged against it. They don't have a ton of space to make moves, but I think they do have flexibility kind of going into next year. So we'll see how things go with the rookie quarterback play. And, once they have a good feel for that, I think they'll have a good feel for what they want to do going forward. For the offensive breakdown, they have 17,303,694 going towards the quarterback position. That's not as low as you might expect for a team that has that rookie quarterback, but they have both Mason Rudolph and Mitchell Trubisky, both on contracts that are not like vet minimum. So, when you combine that with a top 20 pick, you get about $17.3 million. In the scheme of the quarterback position, nothing crazy by any means, but not crazy low either. Offensive tackle. This is a spot where I have questions about the team going into next year. And you can see that in their spending compared to other teams. They have only $13,994,475 invested at that position, which is basically $14 million. And I mean, a lot of teams have more than $14 million invested in just one tackle position. And I understand that you have to pick and choose where you spend your money, but the fact that they haven't spent either money really or high draft picks there with the rookie quarterback situation, again, I don't want to harp on it, but it stands out to me as a place where they're probably going to have some weakness. Interior offensive line, little more, but still nothing crazy. $16,290,727. Wide receiver is crazy low. I mean, if I had to guess this, they might be one of the lowest spending teams in the league at the wide receiver position. Only $8,446,263 for all the wide receivers that fall in that top 53 kind of projection. Tight end, $7,392,006, and again, rookies primarily, or rookie contract guys primarily, and running back $5,071,736. So, the fact that all three of their skill groups probably are total what? Maybe it's about 15. So all three of their skill groups combined barely hit $20 million. Like, that's that's so cheap. Now, but again, what they trade off for in terms of spending, they they do have talent, but it's young talent. You know, um, it does take wide receivers generally a couple of years to really properly develop. So Deontay Johnson's kind of there, Chase Claypool's kind of on his way there, and then you just, you really have no idea how George Pickens is going to come in and be in. Obviously, it's a value draft pick in terms of the kind of talent he has, but you just have no idea what a rookie wide receiver will contribute. Um, on the defensive side of the ball, 51,913,941 on defense, on interior defensive line, 30,266,953 at the edge position, 22,290,809 at the linebacker position. So, not too cheap there. And then $15,333,295 at the corner position. Now that's the one other place on this team where I think I have some questions, and they have neither substantial draft picks nor financial investment really at that position right now. And then safety at 14,337,000 even. In terms of the salary tier breakdown, this is also something I like to look at to see kind of how top heavy or middle heavy a roster is, just from a visual sense. So they have no one at 40 plus million per year. They have no one at 30 to 39 million per year. They've got one player at 20 to 29 million per year. They've got three players at 10 to 19 million per year. They have 5 players at 5 to 9 million per year. They have 18 players at 2 to 4 million per year, and 26 players at under 2 million per year. So, the 5 at 5 to 9 and the 18 to from 2 to 4, that makes them a relatively middle heavy roster. And the fact that most of that 26 of the less than 2 million per year are all draft picks, it means that you can see, like, it's kind of funny when you look at it. It's like, I think it's kind of like when a person who who can like read sheet music can like kind of hear the music just looking at the sheet. When you look at the breakdown of what the roster is from a financial and draft investment perspective, like, you can kind of just see how they're always competitive, because the quality of talent that you can keep on that bottom of the roster is so different if you're hitting on draft picks. Even if they're not like big time players, if they're NFL quality players, it just makes such a difference. Because something a lot of people don't realize, I think, is the fact that there's probably a larger change in annual salary from pick 1 to pick 6 than there is, or maybe not pick 6, but like, there's probably a larger difference in the salary of drafted players from pick 1 to 10 than there is from pick 32 to 200 and whatever. And I'm not looking at it exactly how it breaks down, but basically especially the top of the first round, those players are making in the vicinity of 10 million per year. And that drops down pretty rapidly to the point where in the second round, you're usually looking at around 2+ million per year. And by the time you're out of the second round, you're making under 2 million per year all the way down to the bottom of the draft. So, if you're bringing in, say, 4 to 5 viable NFL players per year from rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, however you break it down. That's so many decent players that you were able to select instead of just take off the scrap heap to maintain that bottom of the roster. So it just makes sense why they've been so good for so long. And the last thing that I have here for their cap breakdown is I have them, all of the numbers that I just talked about in terms of their total average per year investments, their offensive spending, defensive spending, special teams, dead money, and then all of the positional spending. I have it all compared to the other teams within their division. So you can kind of see how invested they are financially compared to the other teams that they play against the most. 6 of their games come against these teams. So you kind of want to see how they stack up against them. In terms of APY, they're 4th out of all of the AFC North teams. The differential between their APY spending and their cap spending is $16,269,344, which is 3rd, which means of the AFC North, they are 3rd of those 4 teams in terms of how leveraged against the cap they are. So they're kind of the 3rd most all in, so to speak. On offense, they're 4th. That's no surprise at under $70 million per year in terms of sort of per year salary investment. Defense, they're 1st. Again, no surprise at over $123 million in average per year. Special teams, kind of whatever, but they're 3rd at $4.2 million. And dead money, with that near $26 million hit, they are 1st. When you look at the positional breakdown, they are 3rd at quarterback despite having a rookie. They are 3rd at $17.3 million approximately. Tackle, they're 4th. Again, no surprise there. They have not spent there. Interior offensive line, 3rd. Wide receiver, 3rd. Tight end, 3rd. Running back, 4th. So they're not higher than 3rd in any offensive position spending compared to the other teams in the AFC North. And then on the defensive side of the ball, interior defensive line, 1st. Edge, 2nd. Linebacker, 1st. Corner and safety, both 4th. So corner, again, comparatively speaking, without high draft investment or financial investment, that does project to be the weak part of their roster. Again, and I watched some games to kind of prepare for this, so I see how it works for them. I see what the plan is for them on the defensive side of the ball, but when you're looking at it just from what they've invested, it does lend itself to be a weaker position. Again, tackle is the other one of those, to be sure. All right, so that's going to be it for the salary cap portion of the breakdown. So if you're listening, I'm going to jump right into the roster and what it's going to look like for 2022. And if you are watching on YouTube, then you can hop over and check that out right now. Like I said, should all be live.